Hello everyone, welcome back to Talking Ted Lasso here on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. Of course, subscribe, ding your notification bell up there first thing, as we're excited to be back in Richmond with the world's most chaotic football team.
Yes.
Most chaotic, newly formed football manager. How exciting it is. I feel like, Jeannine, the 2 episodes today have significantly increased in terms of, I feel like this is what Ted Lasso is, as opposed to maybe the first 4 that we've done in the last 2 episodes, the first 2 episodes of Talking Ted Lasso. I feel like now with these 2 episodes, episode 5, Tan Lines, and episode 6, 2 Aces, are really finding that balance of what I was promised with Ted Lasso, with what you promised.
Yes.
So it can get serious, it stays light, it's feel good in the end.
Yes, and I think this is probably the most football we've actually gotten as well.
It probably is, yeah.
So, I sold you on this show, with the football along with all of those other things, and you hadn't quite seen a lot of it yet. So getting to see the teams play and commentators and things, and I think you found some things that you could actually enlighten me and the audience on in terms of,
well,
Premier Leagues and all of that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, these 2 episodes, I think, gave a lot of what I was selling you the show. So yeah.
They did. I mean, everybody's attitudes towards each other are the same. Obviously, I think we'll get right on into it, because I think it's only right to get right on into it. But the end of the 4th episode saw perhaps a little bit of understanding between Roy Kent and Jamie Tart that has completely gone out of the window by the 5th episode. As expected, really, because they are diametrically opposite people. And while I feel like those last 2 episodes was work to develop Roy from just being a complete side character to a major supporting player in the movie, or in the show, I feel like these 2 episodes are almost doing that for Jamie and making him be a bit more understandable as to why he's the way that he is. Because I feel like he hits his lowest of low in these couple of episodes that we've seen so far. Obviously, I don't know where this show goes in the span of 3 and, soon enough to be 4 seasons. I don't know where it goes. But as far as this beginning half of a season of television goes, we hit Jamie Tart's lowest of low, but we might also hit his most sympathetic period as well, which I feel like is very important, because I was just disliking him more and more and more and more and more and more and more. And you can only dislike a character so far, or you can only understand that a character is dislikable so far, or unlikable, I should say, so far,
until you learn something.
You don't, until you learn something, sure, but before you just don't want to watch the show anymore. Because you don't want to watch this particular character do these particular things. It's just annoying
and be one note. So you had to kind of interject some reasoning as to why this person is like this, or we would have just checked out with him completely, I think.
And thank God they do that in these couple of episodes. But I suppose let's get straight in. Let's put it up. Episode 5 of season 1 of Ted Lasso, Tan Lines. What do you think about this? Please refrain me from waffling as I tend to do.
No, I like this episode in terms of, and I think these 2 episodes as well got to see a different side of Ted. You got to see sad Ted and mad Ted.
Yes, I like mad Ted.
Yes, whereas in previous episodes, you've seen kind of this put on smiley face, positive, doesn't let anything get him down, Ted.
Yeah.
So the fact that we really saw some negative emotions from him for the first time, I think for you was really interesting. So this one we do end up getting kind of a sad Ted and with his son and his wife coming to visit, and we get some more insight on that relationship and
Yeah.
how that kind of trickles into him trying to do his job. Um, so yeah, I really like this episode for giving us this side of Ted, seeing his dynamic with his son, his wife, and getting that understanding of, you know, some some chinks in his positive armor for once.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, it does make you wonder because there's conversations he has with his wife that go essentially along the lines of the optimism is a little bit too much. I do care for you. This is the wife saying
mhm.
this, but I don't think I can handle this anymore. And Ted having to, or I suppose it's an understanding from my part that the optimism may be a little bit of an act anyway. It may be a little bit heightened anyway. I'm looking at this from an outsider. What do I think about Ted Lasso before watching Ted Lasso? I think here is outrageous optimism in a lead character
Yeah.
that is permanent, and that is what the character is. And he's more interesting than that because the outrageous optimism is a little, it might be there. I'm not saying it's not a part of his personality. I think it is 100% a part of his personality.
Yeah.
But I also believe it is purposely heightened by himself to make himself feel better about all the bad stuff that may or may not have happened in his life, of which I
Yes.
don't know very much about.
Yes, he, I think in the end of this episode, he kind of immediately sees the dissolution of his relationship with his wife as him quitting. And
Yeah,
he takes that very seriously and gets really upset with himself because he's kind of says it out loud that, I've never quit anything in my life. So this optimism, this kind of he uses it as a shield, as an armor because of the things he's been through. He's kind of made that choice to be this type of person,
yeah.
to separate himself from the terrible things that are kind of living in his mind.
And the thing
So
is, I get, of which I don't know what they are, by the
so
way.
I don't think it's an
But
act. I feel like it's something that he's built up around him to protect him
okay,
from the pains that he really doesn't want to deal with, because there's a certain point, I will just tell you that his mental health becomes a bit of a struggle for him, and he's very against talking to someone about it
yeah,
because he doesn't want to acknowledge that there's something deeper going on. So the fact that he kind of pushes back so hard on getting help, I think speaks to the fact that this this person that he is, this optimism that he has, is not an act. It's his kind of form of armor.
yeah. I mean, maybe an act was the wrong word. Maybe persona is a better word of this kind of unconscious
Yeah.
creation of oneself
Yeah.
to protect oneself,
Yeah.
seemingly. I obviously don't know exactly what happens, which is why I'm being rather annoyingly pussyfooting around things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and I don't like to do that.
Yeah, no, no.
But I
You're on the right
can't
track.
be direct because I don't know.
Yes, no, but
I don't know.
I can tell you you're on the right track in terms of what's kind of going on with him, and why he kind of is the way he is. So
But it certainly makes him more interesting, and I obviously like him anyway. It certainly makes him more interesting, and you explaining it there as a sense of, obviously he explains it at the end of this episode as him not wanting to quit on anything.
yeah.
His wife being there. He doesn't want to quit on his wife, and his wife telling him it's not about quitting. It's got nothing to do with quitting.
Yeah, it's about letting me go. And yeah, the fact that he kind of gets that realization when he kind of walks in on her crying, and he kind
Yeah.
of asks her what's wrong, and she's like, and he's established to Rebecca in an earlier conversation that the therapist suggested that they say Oklahoma when they need to be honest about something.
Yeah.
So if they feel like the other person isn't telling the whole truth or really saying what they're feeling, the other person says Oklahoma, and that's their kind of cue to tell the honest truth. So she's like, "Oh no, I'm fine. I'm just jet lagged," and he says Oklahoma, and then she kind of lays it out for us and for Ted to kind of finally hit this realization. She's like, I wish I could feel the way I felt in the beginning. I'm trying to feel the way I felt in the beginning, and I just don't, but I will keep trying. I'll keep trying for
Yeah.
you." And this desperation of her wanting to make him happy, wanting to make this work because she loves him, but she is not in love with him anymore. She can't control that she's not in love with him anymore. It's not something she wanted to happen or tried to happen. It just happened. And she
Yeah.
struggles with that because she doesn't want to hurt him. So she's kind of just trying to go through the motions and fall back in love with him again, but she just can't, and it's breaking her heart. And so he's seeing that he's putting her through this, making her feel like she has to try when she's just not feeling it. And so he kind of has to come to this decision to ultimately let her go.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredibly understandable. It's incredibly, it obviously happens. You see
Yeah.
this stuff happen, and it is very sad, but I love that if there was going to be any storyline of this nature in a show like this, I love that it's like this
Yeah.
and not with any sort of maliciousness or any
Yes, that
sort
she is
of,
mean or she's sick of him or
yeah,
she's cheating on him. Like, I like that it's just this real I just don't feel it anymore. I don't know when this change happened. I can't explain. There was no inherent reason as to why it happened. You didn't do anything to make it change. It's just one day click just went off, and I just didn't feel it anymore. I didn't feel the way I did in the beginning, and I'm sorry, and I
yeah.
wish I could, but I just can't.
The care remains there, which
Yeah.
I think it is very important
Yeah.
for Ted. And if we're liking it to football, which obviously Ted Lasso is about and wants to put all these human issues in the world of football,
Yeah.
contextualize them all in the world of football. You can liken this to player fallouts, loyal player fallouts with a manager, with a coach,
Mhm.
whatever you want to refer to it as. That, say somebody's been playing under a particular manager for 7, 8, 9 years or something like that, and then they have an argument and the player gets sold. It's not quitting on that player.
Yeah.
It's just moving on.
Which is
It
something
is,
we end up kind of seeing in this, in the next episode.
well,
Um,
to a degree, yeah, but it's moving on with the better intentions of both parties in mind, if that makes sense.
well, yeah, I mean, even Ted's speech at the end of this episode, he likens it to what he's going through. He's talking about change being difficult and all of that, and even kind of refers to he says "her" when he's kind of talking, and then he has to kind of correct himself and say "her" as in lady football. Like,
Yeah,
so yeah, even when he's giving this speech, at the halftime, he is talking about it as if he's talking about the change that he's gonna have to deal with in terms of finally ending things with his wife.
yeah, he is, and it's a shame that it all combines on him in this
Yeah.
episode, with his wife and son coming, because his son seems really sweet as well, and obviously he's
Yes, he
not
misses them,
five,
he
he's
loves
about
him, they have a
5.
yes, and they have a great relationship, and so, yeah, that making it kind of, difficult for them to come to this decision as well because of their son.
Yeah, but while that's happening, isn't this the episode Ted wins his first game?
Yes, so we do get a lot of football in this episode in terms of Jamie still being the showboat
Yeah.
player.
It's
You know,
not bad,
thinking,
either. It's filmed pretty well, I
yeah,
think. And
okay,
I always feel like it's really difficult to film good football because it is a particularly kind of constant
hmm,
sport.
yeah,
It's not like American football that I feel like is really easy to film because every play is always 15 seconds long anyway. So
yeah,
you just film 15 seconds of a play, and that's
and then we're
quite
stopped.
clearly
Yeah,
American football because you
yeah,
stop anyway.
yeah,
Basketball, I also feel like is particularly difficult to film because
yeah.
it is
'Cause there's
so
constant
constant.
motion and yeah, hmm,
Um, but they don't do a bad job, and
okay,
I fear sometimes with football movies, football, when it's
hmm,
being in a cinematic sense, when it's in a story sense, when it's being done for drama's sake, it needs to look genuine. And I think this is about as genuine as they probably could have made it,
yeah,
given that it's not an overly expensive show at this point either to
yeah,
make. You know, I still think the best football ever filmed is in the movie Goal, the
okay,
first movie,
hmm,
which we've spoken about on this. I just think, while I think it's a little bit of a soapy, melodramatic movie,
yeah,
um, one that I have particular fondness for because I kind of grew up with it. It hit at a particular time of absolute hyper football loving for myself,
yeah,
and the football within it is filmed particularly great. I don't even think it's my favorite football movie. I think I have another favorite football movie where the football scenes are maybe not quite as good, but have this very, very over dramatization to them, and that's
yeah.
Escape to Victory from
Of
1981.
course, yes, you're talking about
But
that one all the time. Yeah.
it's so good. But they don't do a bad job, and I feel like it's important for me to bring that up because it's maybe not something that you would
Yeah,
think about
no,
looking at.
I definitely wouldn't think about. So I this is why I like these insights.
But
Um,
you need to have that believability, I
yeah,
suppose, in order for it to feel in any way real. Because if it looked silly, if it looked like these lot aren't actually playing any sort of
yeah,
football whatsoever, this is filmed really badly, then it would take you out of the whole thing. But I like how we get a bit more of it extended, you know,
gameplay
play
scenes.
in this gameplay in this particular game, which Ted wins his first game, uh,
Yeah.
in controversial fashion because
Yes, Jamie is
Jamie
on the
scores
field.
two.
He scores 2 goals. He's showboating, he's showing off. He's already kind of had an attitude. Ted was already kind of working himself up, I think, the whole episode and scenes to discipline Jamie for once. And as he's kind
Yeah,
of about to have this moment of disciplining him, his son comes in and
yeah,
stops him, and then, Jamie's really sweet to his son, and that kind of kills any momentum that Ted could have had to set him straight.
yeah.
So he goes out there, he's showboating, he scores these goals, he's showing off, he's just talking about me, 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 and his favorite chant, which is Baby Shark, but it's Jamie Tart, which is the whole
Which is
thing.
horrific, by the way.
Yes,
I mean,
but he loves it.
there's so many little things because there's so many little things that I think are very genuine
Mhm.
to English football, but done in this dramatized way, which I don't mind because it's not a documentary. You
No.
know, I like that it's does that. I don't think I've ever heard a chant that's quite to that tune before, but it's the kind of thing you would expect to hear
Okay.
to a
Okay.
degree
Yeah.
because I think this has always been the thing with, and here I go off contextualizing everything again. But this has always been the thing with English football as a opposed to American sports. And obviously, I've attended English football
Yeah.
since I was 5 or whatever, you
Yeah.
know, and I have attended American sports. Is the fan interaction, the fan and supporter kind of atmosphere is
Yeah.
so drastically different. Because in American sports, the chants they're very, very simple.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of does them, because they're so simple and they're done at particular moments in a game,
Yeah.
say, or there'll be, the big screen and it'll come up and you'll follow lyrics or what have you,
Yeah.
but it'll be really, really simple. And aside from that, it's a lot of random shouting, maybe because different sets of fans obviously sit together.
Yeah.
There's no separation of home and away support in
Okay.
American sports. That there's a lot of kind of back and forth, personalized kind of
Jabbing that's
chanting
going. Yeah.
at each other, which obviously you don't get in English football because the away fans are
One
separated, it's
part. Yeah.
segregated.
Yeah.
There's issues of away fans coming into home ends at grounds, and there was an issue this week as we're recording this
Oh my
at
gosh.
at Manchester United, of a load of Glasgow Rangers fans coming into or buying tickets. Don't know how they managed to do this given the security around tickets, but
Yeah.
managing to buy tickets in the home section,
Side.
which is
Yeah.
obviously the
Just.
vast majority of the stadium,
Yeah.
and they're causing fights, and there was loads of
Oh.
arrests.
Oh my gosh.
It just happens. But as far as chanting goes, English football chants are done to folk tunes. They are long. They have 3 verses that everybody knows.
Yeah.
They're often about specific players or specific instances rather than generalized.
Yeah.
This isn't "Let's Go Mets." This is very, very
Specific, player specific. Yeah. I think
individual
Roy
player
has
specific.
one too, so you'll probably hear his at some point. Yeah.
So I get the Jamie Tart Baby Shark thing, but it's
Yeah.
almost too simple.
Okay.
Like, that's all it is. Jamie Tart. Like, come on, give it a bit more than
can
that.
do it.
You need
Yeah.
words in there. You need some sort of story with it, and it needs to be set to, like, the Battle Hymn of the Republic
Yeah.
or Claire de Lune or something like that. It needs to be
Something
set
really
to
fancy.
"Oh
Yes.
Susanna" or
Lyrical.
some sort of folk
Y-
tune.
Yes. Yes. I think Roy's is a little bit more in depth, which, they had more time to think of his since he's an older player. But
Yeah.
yeah. So Jamie very much showboating here. And so Ted makes the decision to pull him out, to kind of,
Yeah,
give
before
somebody else.
halftime as well. I love it. I
Yes,
absolutely love it. Do
because
you realize the extent of how like serious this is? Because
yes,
this can break players, because this isn't, you're only allowed a certain amount of substitutions in a game. You don't come back on once you've been taken off in that particular game. He's already scored 2, but this is pure harsh discipline, and I, for one, am here for it, because I believe not enough managers in the
are
actual
bold
game
enough to do
can
something
do
like
this
that.
anymore,
Yeah,
and are bold enough. There's way too much player power in the modern game. So when I see, even in a fictionalized Ted Lasso sense,
yeah,
this happen to a player that absolutely needs it, no matter how good they are, like, they have done their job for the team. They've
yeah.
scored 2 goals. Right, come off now. You're making a mockery of the situation. You're walking
Yes,
over Sam when he gets injured.
yeah.
What's that about? Help him up. I love this as well, because Roy comes storming in.
Yes, and that is the fight that kind of happens with the 2
Fights it.
teammates on the pitch. So it's very, very interesting that Ted made this decision. But I appreciate that the show also kind of builds up what a big deal this is for people who
Yeah,
may not understand the game or
yeah.
know how serious it is. Like, he runs up all the steps, he goes and asks Rebecca. He's
I
made this
don't know why he
decision
does
very.
that necessarily,
He
but
makes but he doesn't know, but he
yeah,
knows it's a big he knows it's a big deal, but he doesn't, know that he doesn't need to really ask her, but he's like, he respects her and, he thinks he's there to win for her.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So the fact that that's his kind of decision to run up there and ask her permission but I love how just like steadfast and just like sure he is about the decision. He says it so just chill. Like, hey, I just want
Yeah.
to let you know I'm gonna take Jamie out. Is that okay? I just wanted to check with you. Okay. He's already set on it. Um, so yeah, the
And
show lets us
she doesn't
know.
care either way
No,
because,
because she
well,
knows
she
that it's gonna
probably,
make him look bad. She's hoping that it'll
yeah,
make him look bad and it won't work out. But we've also seen instances throughout the episode of Jamie just being really crappy to the team in general. So like we've
oh,
already gotten glimpses that the
constantly.
team is fed up with his attitude. So
Yeah.
even though he's just scored them 2 goals and it's evened it out and everything like that, they are already kind of just done with him because they see him kind of bragging on the pitch
Yeah.
and they're just like and Ted clocks this. We see Ted kind of notice that the teammates are just like, we're sick of this guy.
Yeah.
So,
Because
I think that
why would you
all of
be?
that informs his decision, even though he just scored them the 2 points. He's looking beyond that.
Yeah. Because
So
why would you be there for it? Why would you want to see that sort of stuff? It's a team game, so be a unit, be a team. There's no
yeah.
there are areas, or there is space, I should say, for
Mhm.
individualism. Of course there is. You need
Yeah.
individualism. You need swaggering individuals. I love swaggering individuals in football teams. But the best swaggering individuals also realize they're in a team. The
Yeah.
best swaggering individuals aren't selfish, they're just arrogant. They're not selfish.
Yeah.
They're not going me all the time, like Jamie Tart is.
Yeah.
Why, obviously, I mean, when he gets taken off, it's incredible, and I love it. I'm here for it. But the
Yeah.
fight that breaks out between him and Roy on the
Yeah.
pitch beforehand, Roy Kent should know better than to do this, because this is not something you do. Roy Kent is a team player, and I'm a little bit disappointed in Roy for doing
He's the
this. To be
captain.
honest with you, he's the captain, and he is very not selfish. He's very, very selfless. As far as I understand, Roy,
Okay. Yeah.
he is about the unit. He thinks about himself, but he is not going to put himself above others.
Yeah, and we
He just,
see it even in the winning kind of goal as well. That
yeah,
ends up yeah.
well, absolutely, yeah. Because obviously they end up winning the game. Jamie gets taken off at half time, but there's a big whole halftime shouting from Ted, which I absolutely adore. But before we get into that, the fight itself it feels so significant.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's only ever happened in my memory once.
And they do
In
mention it,
certainly
right? You said?
they do mention it, certainly in the Premier League era. Now the
Yeah.
Premier League era is from 1992 to present. Before that, it was referred to as Division 1. It was essentially the same thing, but it didn't have the same rights. But it was the same, situation.
Yeah.
So I don't know about prior to that. I don't know about necessarily historically. I'm sure it probably has happened before. But there's
Yeah.
a particular notable instance that is mentioned by the commentary team in this particular episode. The commentators themselves say, we haven't seen an incident like this since Newcastle in 2001. And that's because that actually did happen in 2001 in Newcastle to
Okay.
Newcastle. For I don't remember what reason at this point, just
Yeah.
started fighting. I think they were struggling at the time. They were losing the game from what I can remember.
Okay.
But two particularly unlikable players, to be fair, Lee Bowyer and Kieran Dyer, just started punching each other.
Oh my
on the
gosh! So it didn't get that bad with the
No.
show.
This
Okay.
was like, I mean, Roy and JB, it was what? It was a push away and a
Yeah.
shout.
Yeah.
This was like grappling, punches thrown, shirts ripped. There was a public apology made by the both of them afterwards. where they
Oh
were
my,
shamed in a press conference
oh
by
my
their own
gosh.
manager, and it's funny. I'll send it to you after we're finished with
Okay,
recording
okay.
this whole situation, because it won't take you long to watch, but it's nice that they referenced that, I think.
Yes. And didn't they pull a I don't know, a yellow thingy thing on Jamie for that?
A yellow thingy. Yellow, yeah, yellow card. Yes, yes. I think they booked both him and Roy for fighting on the pitch, which is reasonable. Lee Bowyer and Kieran Dyer were both sent off for what they did
Okay.
on the pitch.
But
But yeah,
also, it's also very funny when when Roy actually goes to like check on Sam. He's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Well, it doesn't really hurt anymore, but everyone was making such a big deal. I thought it was better just to lay here." And so Roy telling him, "Well, when you get up, just play it like you're really hurt and that you're
yeah,
just give a gesture like you're gonna play through the pain. Everyone will love it." So
yeah.
I love like
It's what you
Roy.
got to do, right? I like that.
Yeah. So that whole exchange, like after this heated thing, and then we get this like really cute moment of levity and Sam just being so adorable, which we got some really cute moments with Sam in these two episodes, I must
Yeah,
say. Um,
yeah, we
so
did.
yeah, yes.
Next
Then
episode as well, definitely you get a bit about his way of thinking, don't you? And
yes, and him actually
stemmed
having
from
a
his
nice moment with
upbringing.
Rebecca.
Yeah,
Two characters you wouldn't expect to interact really. So I liked that. Um, but yeah, ultimately Jamie gets pulled out. Ted makes this big decision. Obviously, the fans don't understand because they're like, Jamie's winning.
no,
What the heck is he doing? So we have all the people in the pub, particularly the ones who hate him the most,
oh
really
yeah,
getting pissed. Everyone in the stands getting pissed. And Rebecca obviously kind of relishing in it, nobody understanding the decision. But I think the team kind of gets it. So,
yeah. See, and this is the great thing. I think this is what I was talking about before. I love that he gets pulled because there's no place for behaving like that. There's
yes.
no
And
place for
so
behaving like that.
yeah, and so they go back in for halftime and Jamie's left because obviously he's
Yeah,
pissed and so he's not there. So then he gives them this whole speech as I mentioned that's kind of he kind of equates to, his feelings about the ending of his marriage and the change that you have to kind
yeah.
of deal with and all of that kind of thing.
And
So
it's
he gives
loud,
them
it's aggressive, it's
y-
shouting.
yes, and
Really
that's where
good.
the yes, and that's where the tan lines comes in because he's kind of telling the story about the teacher. When you kind of go through these changes as a young man
Yeah,
and, when your hot teacher, and he like kind of gives the teacher's name, and when she leans over you in art class and you start feeling kind of a little squiggly inside. And that was the first time I saw tan lines. So kind of equates that title to the change that these players have to really, deal with and that kind of thing.
yeah.
And
It's
so we're
showing
kind of
more of his
yeah.
really significant man management skills.
Yes. So he gives him this really great motivational speech and kind of what ends up becoming this kind of poignant thing in the series is him tapping the believe
Yeah,
sign.
yeah.
So they're
Which
all
he
kind of
does
in this
very
good.
aggressively as well, like proper jump up,
Yes, and
and
he
there you go.
tells them, "I want all of you to look at me when I do this," kind of thing.
Yeah,
And he hits it. So they all go back out there and they have this plan and they're really working together. And then it's the final shot that's supposed to happen. And Roy has it. And Roy could take the goal himself, but he ends up
he
passing it.
could, he,
Yes. And
yeah,
so he ends up passing it to Sam, and Sam ends up making the goal and they win the game. So
making the goal. I like that phrase, making. He just scores. Sam scores. That's what he does, making the goal. Funny. Um,
no, don't make
no,
fun of
yes,
me.
Roy, Roy could have taken it for himself, but he chooses the easier option and he
Yes,
chooses the more efficient option.
which is something that we saw from Jamie earlier. The commentator
Yeah,
does say that Jamie could have passed it, but he doesn't take the opportunity and he
yeah.
scores himself.
Thank you. Yes, that's proper phrasing. See the education on both fronts, this, isn't it? You're educating me
Shamey.
about the show. I'm teaching you actual terminology. You are
Yes,
Ted in this.
no, the yellow thingy.
The yellow thingy and making goals. We'll stick with that. We will stick with that. Definitely.
Yes. But yes, and then we also get something that's gonna be a common thread as well, just to kind of close out the conversation on this, is this kind of wolf pack kind of situation where all of the guys kind of come in and have this council in Ted's office and kind of talk about things. So when
Okay.
after Ted, hears this from his wife about how she's going to keep trying even though
Yeah.
she's not feeling it, he kind of talks to Beard and kind of calls in the other guys to also kind of talk about what's going on. Um, and this ends up becoming kind of a common thing where they're all kind of get together and talk
Okay.
about. So yeah, it's a kind of a nice little situation that will be a common thread
Yeah.
going forward. And I love that Higgins, when he gets invited in, he's like all
Yes.
excited and he tries to like jump up and sit on and he's like, no, it's not gonna happen. But yeah.
Higgins is already on Ted's side
Yeah.
reluctantly, or he almost doesn't want to admit that he is
Yes,
still.
but I like that he's subtly becoming more brave in terms of,
Oh yeah,
telling Rebecca that no, he's kind of on the side of the team. And I even in the opening when his wife drops him off and you know, uh she's like, "Well, you do taking this position, we can afford to get our other car fixed, and we appreciate you going through what you're going through. And I hope that Rebecca chokes and dies or something
yeah,
you know." So I love that his family's in the know of the situation, but they still support him and all of that kind of thing. And I think that's helping him also be more bold and kind of
I think so.
subtly telling Rebecca that like I can't do this. I'm gonna do what's best for the team kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
well, and ultimately, he's director of football. That's
yeah.
his entire job is doing what's
Yeah.
best for the team, supposedly. But
Yes.
you can talk about, backroom and corporate staff in football clubs until you're blue in the face at the moment
Yeah.
because it is just a mess for a lot of clubs and a lot of teams at the minute. And you
Yes.
get people in and they say, "Oh yeah, we're going to do this and do that and do that," and then they end up, spoiling everything, and in some cases, completely forcing certain clubs to dissolve and liquidate and become non-existent
Yeah.
because of poor ownership and false promises and things like that, particularly lower
Yeah.
down the pyramid. But yeah, so it's nice that you have Higgins, somebody who clearly doesn't really understand football at all, but at least is
He's
supportive and
trying
a
and he's
pleasant
supportive.
man.
Yes. So yes, this wolf pack dynamic with Nate and Higgins and Beard
Yeah,
will kind of be this fun little situation. And I also love that like just subtle little things with Nate. Like one of when Ted is giving that speech, one of the players just kind of taps the bench for Nate to like sit next to him.
yeah,
Just little things like that to show that, like, with Ted's presence and Ted really, kind of, building up Nate in that way, and demanding respect for him, and Roy demanding respect for him, the team is
yeah,
also kind of giving him that respect as well, which is something he's never had. So,
yeah. It's
yeah.
nice. It's an episode of high highs and low lows, really, isn't it? Emotionally,
Yes, and so then,
and
we end with Ted saying goodbye to his family and kind of really making the decision to, "Yes, I will let you go. I see how hard you are struggling to make this work for me, and I can't sit back and let you do that anymore." And she tells him,
yeah,
"You're not quitting, you're just letting me go," so that he can kind of hopefully
yeah.
not feel like a quitter. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what he needs. That's both of them doing what each of them needs.
Yeah.
She's telling him, "You're not quitting, Ted. This is not quitting. This is not losing. This is not doing anything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Um, this is just, yeah, letting me go
What it
because
has to be. I
the best."
can't.
He
Yeah.
allows that to happen, and
Yeah.
it's for the best for everybody, and it is mutually beneficial in
Yeah.
that way. I
Yeah.
think. Um, which is a good thing. Bittersweet is the perfect word, I think. But obviously, all that comes with him actually winning a game
Mhm.
and him getting some compliments from some supporters of the club.
Yes, and the fact that, the wanker has kind of changed
Yes.
form.
Yes, to a positive term now, a term of endearment.
Yes, they've changed the tune of it to be a little bit more peppy and not as pe
Yes.
vitriolic. So yes, but we open the next episode with now kind of the effects of this breakup, kind
Yeah.
of really being shown on Ted, him being late and really frazzled and over talking and not okay and just kind of throwing random stuff out there, not in his kind of fun, thoughtful way, but in just like this, his mind is a mess kind of way. And
Very
we love
erratic, very
yes,
erratic. Let's get into
yes,
it. Two
yeah,
Aces, episode 6.
yes.
It's
So
good to
he's a
see from
little yes. So very interesting. As I said, these episodes, you are really getting to see these different sides, these layers to him, that it's not just this kind of positive thing. There are literal kind of effects that all of these things are having on him, and you're seeing it. And so, he kind of just ends up leaving the room in this frazzled state. Nate asks, is he okay? And Beard is like, no, he's
No,
not
no,
okay at
it's
all. Yeah. And we have a new player that's come in,
we
Danny Rojas,
do.
who's very excited and peppy and happy and dancing around and constantly talking about football, his life, and it's just this nice breath of fresh air. So,
Yes. Apparently, Danny Rojas was signed in the summer, but has been injured the entire time.
yeah,
So he's only just coming in now, and he
and they don't
is.
know what they're working with, so it's this kind of like,
No, we've no idea.
yeah, yeah. And he's gonna be playing Jamie's position, so it's this whole kind of competition thing, and after
Yeah,
this thing, Jamie has said, "Oh, I'm injured, I can't play today," and just having an
yeah,
attitude, really. And so I love that Ted kind of lays into him and really yells at him, and he's like, "It's just practice, like, it's not a big deal," and Ted goes off on him and talks to him about how important practice is and, like, you need to get over yourself and all of this.
yeah.
And
There's more,
yeah.
more, more shouting at Jamie, and I like this. And this practice shouting sounded awfully familiar to Allen Iverson's famous press conference from, again, I think like the early 2000s, obviously basketball player,
Yeah.
um, in Philadelphia. And he went on this big press conference tirade because he missed a practice, and there was all this talk and speculation about, oh,
Yeah.
why is
Like, you
he
miss a
missed this?
practice, yeah.
He comes on this press conference and keeps saying things like, "It's not a game. It's not a game. It's not the game that I go out there and bare my heart and soul every night for. This is practice. We're talking about practice." And he said it from the context of, does it really matter that much? Because
Yeah.
I show up for the game. And this by Ted, and it's the exact same terminology that Ted uses.
Yeah.
Like, I got it straight away that it was from this.
Yeah.
And it is being flipped totally on its head
Yeah.
because
It's Ted's side of it, it's
Ted's
the
saying it,
coach's side of it, yeah.
yeah, as practice is so important. I mean, Ted calls it practice anyway, doesn't he? Americans call it practice and British people call it training. It's the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're talking about practice. So get out there and set up the cones instead. And I love this as well. Make the arrogant man suffer. Make him suffer. Make him feel shame. I'm
Yeah.
all for it
Yes, and then he
when
tries
he
to pawn it
needs.
off on one of the other guys, and they're like, "No, he asked you to do it," and that kinda thing, and they end up kind of
Yeah.
standing up to him as well, which they were, like, kind of his lackeys before. And so I love him kind of getting put in his place, and Nate loves he's, like, laughing about it, and
Oh,
Ted's
yes.
like and Ted tries to, like, rein it back, like, "I didn't do it to, like, uh, get him back. I'm trying to teach him something," kinda thing.
Yeah.
But
He,
Nate
he
is just
needs
like
shame, discipline. He needs humility, and he doesn't have any humility, or at least we don't think he has any humility. He doesn't show that he has humility, which is why he puts this incredibly cocky persona, as it
Yeah.
seems, the persona by the end of the episode on,
Yes.
or is it a persona, or has it been drilled into him from an upbringing at the
Yeah,
start?
we get a great deeper kind of explanation, like, he lays it all out as to kind of why he is the way he is, and the fact that he's, like, mature enough, which we didn't expect, for him to understand that that's what's happening with him is really great.
But he
But
does it in context of this ritual they're all doing.
yes. So how we kind of get here is Danny, they're at the practice and they're all out there and Danny comes out and he
He's very good.
Jamie obviously has this like, oh, he's not gonna be very good because no one is as good as him. But then Danny comes out and he's great and he's like all lively and upbeat and running around and just saying his name over and over again and talking about football his life and he's so excited and he's just fast and on his feet and he doesn't make a goal. He scores a goal. He scores. He scores. And been shamed.
Very good.
Um,
Very, very good.
and and he just impresses everyone, and like everyone likes him because he's just so likable and upbeat. And everyone, Jamie obviously is just like, and Roy is like loving it too. He's like, hey, like
How Roy is loving it, I do not know, because Roy seems like he would hate this sort of energy.
yeah.
But
But if it pisses off Jamie, he's like all for it.
yeah,
So later we see Danny kind of just practicing, and then he just nothing out of nowhere, he just falls over injured again. And once they kind of sit and talk, Nate is talking to Ted and Beard and Higgins and like saying, "Oh, I didn't want to say anything, but he went in the training room just before that happened."
yeah,
So, um, like nobody knows what it means. Like Beard and Ted are so confused; they don't know what he's talking about, and so then he has to explain it. Well, the training room is cursed.
yeah.
So they explain the curse of the training room. They get them all to meet at the pub, and they kind of tell the history of what happened, involving the training room.
Yes, which
So yeah,
I do quite like, because
yeah,
football clubs should have history.
a
Football clubs
history.
should have a
Mhm.
certain tradition, a certain way of doing things, whether it's ritualistic,
Yeah,
or whether it's silly, or whether it's just meaningful history that molds the particular club into what it is, good or
yeah.
bad, positive or negative. And this is very much that. It also brings up the fact that superstition is very, very much a thing in major
Okay.
sports. This isn't just football either. This is very much a thing. Certain players will only put their right boot on first, for instance, and it has to be the case. Certain people will have to wear a pair of underwear or something like that.
Oh, okay.
To
Yeah,
the extent where he won't mind me saying this, my own brother, who has played football competitively, okay, low level, but competitive,
yeah.
and
Mhm.
there's money at stake and all that
Yeah,
sort of stuff. For virtually his entire adult life, or yes, his entire adult life, um, he for a very, 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 very long time always had to wear the exact same pair of underwear when he was playing, and he just
okay.
wouldn't. He would had
It
to
had to be that specific pair every
had
time.
to be had to until they literally fell apart. He would wear this, and it's
Oh
a
my
thing.
god.
It, and
Okay.
you see superstition in sport of that nature all the time. So I can 100% believe that they all think the treatment room is cursed.
Yeah, because we get this history that, this poster was put out, asking for people to come to the stadium and try out, for football. And so all of
Yeah,
these men came to try out, and then it was revealed that it was a recruitment center, and all of these people tried to recruit them to go fight in the war. And
yeah,
so 400 men went, to fight instead of getting to play football. And not very many of them came back. And
Yeah.
so they think that, the training room is full of ghosts because that's where the recruitment happened,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Which, I mean, doesn't make sense, but it does make sense as to why you would believe something
The
like that
superstition,
could
and I love the honesty
go.
in them kind of being hesitant to tell Ted. They're like, "Well, why
Yeah,
wouldn't anybody say that?" And it's like, "Because,
especially Roy.
there's this, grown men don't wanna admit that they believe in curses," and Sam says it, and, like, they ask Roy, "Do you believe in it?" "No." And he, like,
Go in the treatment room then.
"Go to the
No.
treatment." "No." "Why not?" I'm not going in there," like so, yes, I love Roy so much. So they decide they're gonna do this, like, juju ritual to, like, get rid of the bad
Yeah.
omens in there. So they're gonna take, like, a special kind of lucky thing that they have and burn it, and that will
Mm.
kind of get rid of the bad energy that's in there. And so this is when we get this really great moment with, Sam and Rebecca. So,
Yeah.
Sam goes to Rebecca and he asks her, "Oh, hey, are you free tonight?" And she's like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "No, no, no, that's not what I meant. I mean, you are a very beautiful woman, but like, no, that's not what I meant."
And
Um,
we should say this is all going on when there's this story about Rebecca in the newspapers
yes,
of her
yes.
being referred to as old
Old
Rebecca.
Rebecca. So, yes, also love the development of this Keely and Rebecca relationship. So Keely goes to see
Yes.
her, to talk to her, and she says, "Oh, yeah, this newspaper came out, the girl Bex that, Jamie had brought to be his, like, second, and, your ex went off with him at the end of the auction. Rupert went off with her. Well, she's Bex is short for Rebecca, so she's Rebecca." So Rebecca just assumes, "Oh, so they're calling her new Rebecca," and she's like, "No, they're calling you old Rebecca." So
Yeah.
it's always these things that happen when Rebecca's maybe inching into feeling bad about what she does to Ted, and then something happens with
Yeah.
Rupert that
Yeah.
reinvigorates her
It seems
her
that.
her one-minded revenge plot, not thinking about anything else.
Which is
Um,
always a shame, but can't be controlled.
yes. Because she's one-minded about this whole thing
And is
until Ted
obviously understandable as well, because you don't even you don't ever, I think,
you don't
hate
hate
Rebecca
her.
for having the
No,
mentality she has.
exactly, you understand why she's doing it. Um, and, and you have to kind of just wonder how is this gonna work out,
Yeah.
if it ever is revealed. So, yeah, Sam goes to her and asks her to come to the ritual because he thinks it's important for the whole team to be there. And I love that he's just very honest about everything. He's like, "Oh, just because I'm African, everyone just thinks I'm into all this voodoo stuff." And she's like, "Oh, you're not?" He's like, "No, I am into it, actually."
No, I love it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing.
Yes. So he asks Rebecca to come because he thinks it'll be important to, help the juju of the room if you
Yeah.
come. And she's
And
like, "Well, for
credit
you,
to her,
Sam."
she does.
Yes, and she's like, "No, I'm gonna decline." He's like, "No, I insist that you come. Like, I'm not gonna
Mm.
take no for an answer." And he's really sweet about it. And she's like, "For you, Sam, okay, I'll try." So really nice moment there. Um, and then even kind of like the post breakup, Jamie and Keely relationship is really fun too. Like, I like that there's still kind of this understanding
Interesting,
between
yeah.
the two of them. And there's still no like Keely, how she knows how to navigate him. So, she can kind of put him in his place in like a really cute way. Like how and she's kind of doing that with Roy, and there's something kind of like brewing, it's seeming like between the
Yeah.
two of them as well, which is really cute. Um, so yeah, a bunch of fun little kind of dynamics brewing out of these situations. And Rebecca had also offered Keely a job to do PR for the team.
Yes.
So she's
Which
kind
is
of
a
considering that.
good situation, I think.
Yes, and to get her kind of in the mix because she's a really great character. Um, but, yeah, so they kind of end up doing this ritual. Rebecca does show up, and so they all kind of put things into the bin to be burned to help kind of get exercise the training room. And
Yeah.
they do invite Jamie, and so Jamie goes to Keely to ask her kind of in a roundabout way because he doesn't wanna admit that he cares,
Yeah.
but he goes and asks her if he should go, and she's like, you know is the rest of the team doing it? And he's like, yeah, but I'm not doing it. I'm not like anyone else kind of thing. And so she kind of, in her subtle way, kind of tells him that maybe he should, stop fighting everybody. You're a fighter, you're a battler. You don't need to battle your team, like kind of
Yeah.
thing. So
I mean, we also learn a particularly important detail about Jamie, not only in context of the story, but I think that kind of in context of his own mind as well, is that he is a lone player.
mm,
He was loan. He's not been signed by Richmond.
yeah.
He's been loaned to them by Manchester City, of all horrible people. Which is just hilarious to me as
Yeah.
well, that he's come from there because of the way he is.
Yeah.
And I love the fact, maybe they've done it as a dig. I'd love to
Yes.
think
So
they've done it
I
as a
like that you can give that insight that that detail is probably something that was very thoughtful to the dynamic of how people see Ned City. So
yeah, as you know,
for people
the
who aren't aware of that.
well, I mean, maybe it's just how I, as a United fan, see them, but I don't think it is, because they are obviously, basically, they're having a bad season this season, and everybody's loving it.
Yeah.
It's kind of that situation,
Yeah.
because they've been dominant for too long through cheating. So I'm not even going to say allegedly at this point,
Oh gosh.
because not
Okay.
only do I not think Talking Ted Lasso is going to make it to, City's
Anyone who's
log
gonna see it to where
or
this
anything like
allegedly is gonna
that,
we're gonna get sued.
but we're going to get sued. They've done it through cheating. They've come under 115 charges of financial breaches
Oh my gosh.
in the last 15 years. So, I
Yeah.
like that Jamie is a City player on
Okay.
loan,
Okay.
because it just makes sense for
His
the way
attitude.
he is, his
Yes.
attitude.
Yes, and so we do get a little bit more insight in the ritual when it happens. So, not only
Yeah,
do we get Rebecca showing up and she throws into the fire to burn the newspaper that calls her old Rebecca.
yeah,
Um, so she's there with the team. And so these little glimmers of things are showing you that, you know, I think she could really care and be a
she
good,
could.
boss of all of this if she wasn't, in the situation of this vendetta, because a part of her
Yeah,
really does care, and it makes her feel good that they want her to be so involved because they care about her in that capacity and
yeah,
respect her. And so, it's kind of an interesting place morally to put her. Seeing that the team really cares about her and
yeah,
respects her, that Ted really cares about her and respects her, but she's kind of can't see past,
yeah.
those things, but little bits get in there.
I
Um,
cannot wait to get more and more into her, and to hopefully, I have to assume, see a change for the positive in her, where she eventually comes to back Ted. I have to assume that happens. I don't obviously
okay.
know if that happens. Maybe it's just my mind wanting that
Wanting
to
it to
happen. I really
happen. Yeah,
don't know, but I would very, very much like to see
okay.
that happen. And going back onto the fact Jamie's a lone player as well, and I didn't think about this until I've just brought it up now. It's natural for lone players to feel like outsiders as well, because they're not
Oh, fully part of
actually
the team,
part of
yeah,
that club.
yeah,
They're part of another club. They're being paid by another club. They're
to be
signed
there.
to another club and just playing
Oh,
for this
yeah, that's a
separate
really great point.
team.
Yeah, but to also kind of isolate him and make him think he's, like, separate and different from everybody,
Yeah,
because it's something he talks about a lot, being different from everybody, and
yeah.
seeing it as kind of like a source of pride.
As he,
But
we didn't realize until this episode that he was a lone player.
yes. So, I
So
like you
I
giving
think
that
it's
insight of
important.
what that means, because I don't think I really would have thought about it that deep. So,
Yeah,
I appreciate you knowing these things. But, yeah, he shows up to the ritual after all, and he
he does.
does reveal this really thing. He has a pair of trainers that, he puts in there because he talks about how he got into the game in the first place because of his mother, that she,
Yeah,
um got him excited to play, and so he played for her, and it was her who, just wanted him to enjoy the game and be happy. She didn't care if he was any good. She just saw that he enjoyed it, and that's all she cared about.
Yeah.
But then once he did start getting good, that was when his father came around, and only came around when he was winning and doing well and bragging to his
Yeah.
friends. And when he wouldn't do well, his father, called him soft,
Yeah.
and ridiculed him. So, and he hated it. He hated it with a passion, but he kind of built up this armor of being hard and cocky because he, didn't want his father to be able to call him soft because he hated it
Yeah.
so much. So then he
He vowed
realized,
never to let his father call him soft again.
yes. So then it feels like he's almost kind of coming to this realization as he's talking
Yeah.
that he doesn't really know when it became more about getting back at his father than, you know, fulfilling his mother's wishes for him just to be happy with
Yeah.
the game and be happy and
Exactly.
doing it to be happy and doing it for her. So the hate for his father started outweighing the love for his mother in terms of how he viewed what he was doing. So that's
Yeah.
just kind of what has made him who he is. And I love kind of getting this pan shot around of the different looks on people's faces. Like even Rebecca's like kind of surprised, and
Yeah. It's
Roy
such
is
a key
Roy
moment.
is really listening. And yeah, so I love all of these people getting this insight on him when they were really quick to just write him off as this cocky asshole. So
It
I
is
love that he's really
such a key
vulnerable
moment.
in this moment. Yes, and it's a key moment for Ted as well, who's been trying to get through to him.
Yeah.
So then, they're about to burn and they're like, maybe we should do this part outside." So
Right.
they go
Yes.
outside and they burn everything, and they're like, "I wonder what kind of sign we can have to show that this bonfire worked and that everything's good." And then here comes out Danny. He's great and he's fine, and
Yeah.
the
He's not
the
injured at all.
no, the ritual made him get better, and he brings this bottle of tequila, and he wants to put in the fire, and they're like,
Don't do that.
no, we're gonna drink it." And even Jamie's kind of all with the team, and everyone's drinking, having a
Yeah.
good time. Ted asked Rebecca to stay, and, she's like, "No." And I guess Danny was like, "Okay," hours ago, but they chose not to tell the team until this moment so
Yeah.
that they could build up this, like, whole camaraderie. And he tells Rebecca that it was Higgins' idea to kind of keep that a secret and not tell the guys
Yeah.
until the right moment. And she's like, "Oh, Higgins, so you really, put the team first, huh?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she
Yes.
seems kind of
I
like
think
upset
he
about
did.
that. Yes.
See, this is what I really, really love. It's almost not a Rebecca, can you stay? No answer. It's a Rebecca, can you stay? I don't think I can answer.
Yeah.
So eventually, which is very, very different to just saying no,
Yeah.
because she is going in circles in her own mind, especially now with Higgins being a bit
Yes,
more
really
interested.
kind of falling into this and seeing the team kind of come together, and she's even looking at it, I think she makes a comment like, "Wow, a real, united team, a really,
Yeah,
united front here." And she's seeing that they're learning and they're growing and they're becoming better, and now they have this win, and it was,
she's messing with her.
yes, and so she can't handle it, and I think the guilt kind of like of being around Ted
Yeah,
kind of is not great. So we see her kind of walk away, she drops her jacket off and it just kind of struts away, and Ted kind of
yeah.
clocks something kind of weird about that. Um,
Again, it just makes me interested into seeing where this goes next, because if Ted's clocking more odd behavior
from
or
Rebecca.
unusual behavior, and Rebecca's having doubts and questions of her own plans and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, what the hell happens? I can't wait to actually figure that out. I did want to just mention a little bit more depth onto Jamie, though,
Okay.
before we fully close out. And due to the nature of him telling this story about, obviously, you know, poor area in North Manchester that he comes from, and I mean, football was life to him as well, not just Danny Rojas, who goes around
Yeah.
saying it all the time.
Yeah.
Um, who also reminds me of just the most wonderfully likable, one of the most wonderfully likable players that United ever had, which was Javier Hernandez, or Chicharito, who was a very famous Mexican player.
Yeah.
About What year is it now? 2025. He played for United 15 years ago. Like around 2010 ish.
Okay.
For how long was he there for? I would say he was probably there for 5 or 6 years. Maybe 5 years. So likable, just this wholesome presence, and maybe they're stereotyping Danny Rojas.
No,
I don't
maybe.
know, but it just seems like this
He's
hyper
fitting that kind
energetic,
of
really
archetype. Yeah.
smiley, cheerful, wholesome Mexican player.
Yeah.
Just seems to have come across then. So I like that.
Yeah.
But with Jamie and the story of him doing it for his mother and then his father coming in only when he's doing well, but berating him when he doesn't, and really, drilling into him, beating into him this be a hard man, don't be soft, is such a, I see it around here. This is Greater Manchester where I currently sit.
Yeah.
This mentality is present. It has always been present in certain people and certain areas, perhaps more than others, and I think it will always be, of this really non-emotional kind of, don't let your emotions show,
Yeah.
be tough, because look where we are, you have to be tough to live here. Look where we are, you have to be tough to get by. And obviously I think if you're thinking critically about it, there's better ways of doing this. Obviously there's more widespread change. If you want to change the mentalities of vast areas of people, it can happen. But is it easier to just go into the norm? Of course it's easier to go into the norm, but it's more damaging. So this is, and I recognize so clearly the area of which Jamie and the mentality of which Jamie, I'm not saying I haven't grown up in this mentality, but I recognize this mentality of growing up in this sort of area. And you see it when I used to play football as a kid. You would see dads, obviously, to be fair, mothers as well. Sometimes the mothers were incredibly aggressive.
Okay.
Sometimes the worst, most vulgar people on the sidelines were the mothers of, think of boy mums.
Okay.
The
Yes.
stereotype, but
Yeah.
in a like, I'm gonna beat up the other kids kind of way. It was a bit like, why have you fouled my little,
My baby, my
Timmy?
sweet child. Yeah.
I'm gonna charge on the pitch and start throwing punches. It never quite got to that, but it's that kind of thing. But you would get it from the dads, definitely. You would get this real aggression.
Yeah, but his
And
whole
this
thing
is
also is
children's football, and this is what
yes.
James describing in this
Yes,
sequence.
but it's also a scenario where his dad is never around until he's, like, winning
Yeah.
or doing something as well. So that's, like, this kind of, you know, transactional relationship. So that also, is a big proponent in messing him up the way it is. But, yeah, I mean, we had this great breakthrough with Jamie. Ted finally got through to him, really being part of the team, and then we get the news and end this episode with him, being taken back, by Man City
Yeah.
and him no longer being a part of the
They've
team.
recalled him from his loan. Well,
Yes,
they've
and
recalled him
Ted
from his loan because Ted's dropped him from the team for discipline reasons.
Yes, he benched him, and so they were worried he wasn't playing enough. 1 game of benching him, and they're worried he's not playing enough.
The City's mentality, they need to get a grip of themselves.
Yes, 1 game, literally. And I think, Ted would have maybe put him back had he, seeing this change in him, but 1 game, and that was enough for them to say they were worried you weren't playing him enough, and so they pulled him. And Ted is pissed, and he's trying to
Oh, yeah.
understand. And then Rebecca kind of pushes the button by saying, "Oh, well, I thought this is what you wanted." Clearly knowing that this is not what Ted wanted. And he
Yeah,
was like, "Well, no, you're wrong." And he's pissed and he like storms out and he's like, "Wait, I'm gonna give you your biscuits and I hope they're terrible. But damn it, this is the best batch I've ever made. I finally cracked the recipe." And this is where Rebecca kind of learns that he's been making them the whole time because this whole time she's had Higgins running
yeah,
all over town trying
yeah,
to find the place where he bought these biscuits. But when he says this to her in this heated way, he's never spoken to her like this before, and he reveals in the same time that he's been hand making these biscuits for her, the most delicious biscuits she's ever eaten, and he's made them for her from scratch every single day. Like,
yeah.
that's also gonna be something, just the look on her face is enough to tell you this is also going to be feeding into this mind melt that is happening with all of the sides that she is feeling about what she's doing here.
Yeah,
So, I
it's
love that that's
fascinating.
how they reveal it to her. Like a silly thing, a bit comedic, but knowing that it has this whole kind of deeper meaning in terms of how Rebecca is gonna handle the situation. So, yeah, I mean, now everyone's feeling defeated because they were gonna have 2 aces, title of the episode, with Jamie and
Yes.
Danny. But now we just have Danny, and Danny kind of pops his head in and reminds them football is life with his little positive attitude, and all they can kinda do is nod and figure out what they're gonna do next, so
I mean, I like how the fact they even refer to it as two aces, and this is only Ted and Beard
yeah,
referring to it as two aces. But even that concept, I like the fact that I understand that concept because that's a baseball concept of
am I own.
accidentally having two aces because
Yeah,
your ace pitcher is your best pitcher.
yeah,
You call them your ace, and having two is, if you get two, it's a hell of a good thing because you've got
yeah,
two top tier
yeah,
pitchers in your rotation.
yeah,
Um, which, especially when it comes accidentally, is going to feel great, right?
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
what Ted thought he had.
Yes,
Um,
and Ted is also just upset because he's like, "I finally got through to him." That is what he cares about more than anything else, losing their star player. That's, like, second on his list of frustrations. The biggest frustration for him is that he finally got through to Jamie. He finally got Jamie to be a part of the team, respecting everybody, really sharing something real about himself, getting that understanding on both ends of the teammates and him, and them understanding why he is the way he is, him expressing that and feeling vulnerable, but vulnerable enough to express that. So he finally had this breakthrough with Jamie, which is what he cared about more than anything. And
yeah.
then for him to switch teams just kills all of that momentum and work, and also kills, maybe potential wins because he was their best player.
Well,
So
yeah. I mean, who knows what will happen on the football front? I think if you're going for Morgan's desire again, quite strangely, I wouldn't mind Richmond signing Jamie permanently in the next transfer window. I
okay,
think that
okay.
might be a
Thing you want to see.
obviously that takes significantly more than just Ted wanting to sign Jamie
Yeah.
back as being able to be done. But I would like to see that be a discussion at
Okay.
least.
Yes.
Whether it happens or not, I don't know. But I assume Jamie stays a reasonably main character in
Yes,
the show.
we will still see Jamie Tart around, and all of that kind of thing. So yeah.
So I mean, I don't know what'll happen. Maybe Danny Rojas will come in and rip up every team in the league, um, as he possibly could do. As
Yeah.
he possibly could do. But it's interesting. It's interesting. There's a lot of
Yes.
speculation in my head going on at the moment, and I like that.
Yes.
Admittedly, I'm
Okay.
excited for the next episode of Talking Ted Lasso, Jeannine, as we get closer to the end of season one.
Mhm.
To be fair, there's only 10 episodes a season, right?
Yeah.
So only a couple more episodes of season one left of Talking Ted Lasso. Of course, there are 4 episodes left in terms of the actual
Yes.
show, I believe. 7, 8, 9, and 10. But unless we have anything else to say, Janine, unless you had any more nice
Mhm.
little thoughts on where we're
Yes.
going,
No, I don't
Ted,
wanna shame myself with wrong terminology any further. So,
You will not be shaming yourself with any wrong terminology. I like it. We'll make those goals and we will do what else did you say? Have the yellow thingies in
The
our
yellow thingy.
the yellow thingy. I'm going to refer to them as that from now on. Actually, I think in any context, the yellow thing. I like it a lot.
Okay.
We'll be back with Talking Ted Lasso in a couple of weeks. Discovering Dawson's Creek, of course, alternates with this show every Monday on the YouTube channel. Do subscribe.
Almost closing out that season as well. Season 2.
We certainly are. We certainly are. We've had things scrolling down at the bottom of the screen all episode long as well. Social media, Patreon, donation links, all the good stuff is in the description. Of course, subscribe to the main podcast feed as well. For Morgan Hasn't Seen, and for the main show, It's a Wonderful Podcast celebrating old movies every week. Wherever you get your podcasts on all major platforms. That's going to do it. I mean, do I get you to do your Roy Kent impression again?
It's not good at all.
Or do an impression of Ted if you want. I don't think you've done an impression of Ted.
Oh, gosh, that's even harder.
Well, if that's even harder, do an impression of Jamie. It was Jamie's couple of episodes. Do an impression of Danny Rojas. Because that could come across as very offensive.
Oh, and that's why you want me to do it?
You're the one who does the countdowns.
3, 2, 1. Danny Rojas, Danny.
Bye.
What's their name?
What is life?